Ignite your own flame. Don't borrow mine. We live in a time where it is easy to admire strength, but difficult to build it. Easy to quote discipline, but hard to practice it. Easy to feel inspired for a moment, but rare to stay committed when the feeling fades. Many people look for fire outside themselves. They look to leaders, role models, systems, or circumstances, hoping that someone else's flame will warm their life. But borrowed fire never lasts. The moment the source is gone, the cold returns. Your life is not meant to be powered by imitation. You were not born to repeat someone else's journey or to live in the shadow of another person's strength. What works for one person may weaken another. When you borrow motivation, confidence, or direction, you give away responsibility for your growth. And without responsibility, there is no real power. Your flame begins where comfort ends. It is not found in applause or approval. It is found in the quiet moments where no one is watching and no one is cheering. It is built when you choose effort over excuses, when you choose discipline over convenience, and when you choose consistency over intensity. Intensity burns fast and disappears. Consistency builds heat that never fades. Stop waiting to feel ready. Readiness is an illusion created by fear. Action comes first, clarity follows. When you move despite doubt, something inside you wakes up. The body adapts. The mind sharpens. Confidence grows, not because you felt brave, but because you acted anyway. This is how a flame is born. Pain is part of the process. Anyone who promises growth without discomfort is selling an illusion. Resistance is the forge. Struggle shapes strength. Every challenge you avoid weakens you, and every challenge you face strengthens you. Do not ask why the path is hard. Ask who you are becoming because of it. Comparison will try to steal your fire. You will see others ahead of you and feel behind. You will see others praised and feel invisible. This is a trap. Their path is not your measure. Their pace is not your pace. The moment you compare, you divide your focus and dim your potential. Stay in your lane. Build in silence. Let progress speak when it is ready. Discipline is the fuel. Motivation is unreliable. Discipline shows up on days when motivation is gone. It trains you to act regardless of emotion. It builds self-respect. Each time you keep a promise to yourself, your flame grows stronger. Each time you break one, it flickers. Choose wisely. Take responsibility for everything you can control. Not because life is fair, but because responsibility gives you power. Blame makes you weak. Excuses keep you small. Ownership forces growth. When you stop pointing outward and start looking inward, your life begins to move. Do not seek validation. Seek mastery. Praise fades. Skill remains. Applause is temporary. Character is permanent. Build something within yourself that cannot be taken away by opinion, failure, or circumstance. One day, if you stay disciplined, patient, and honest with yourself, your flame will burn bright. People will notice. Some will admire it. Some will resent it. Some will want to borrow it. When that moment comes, remember this: your fire was built through sacrifice, solitude, and struggle. Do not give it away. Stand firm, stay grounded. Let others be inspired, but never become their source. The world does not need more borrowed fire. It needs individuals who are willing to suffer, work, and grow until their own flame can light the way, not just for themselves, but by example alone. Power is not something passed down like a family heirloom, nor is it absorbed by standing close to those who possess it. True power is internal, cultivated through deliberate effort, awareness, and responsibility. Many people spend their lives searching outside themselves for strength, through mentors, systems, relationships, or recognition, believing that proximity to power will somehow make it theirs. But borrowed strength is fragile. The moment the source disappears, so does the confidence, the direction, and the courage. Internal power, on the other hand, remains steady because it is rooted in self-mastery rather than dependency. From an early age, people are conditioned to believe that authority grants power. Titles, status, lineage, or approval seem to define worth. This belief quietly trains individuals to wait, to be chosen, validated, or rescued. Waiting weakens initiative. When power is seen as inherited, responsibility is avoided. But when power is understood as internal, the individual realizes that no one is coming to save them. This realization is uncomfortable, yet it is the moment growth begins. Ownership of one's life becomes unavoidable. Internal power is built through discipline, not comfort. Comfort dulls awareness and delays growth, while discipline sharpens the mind and strengthens resolve. Every time a person chooses what is difficult over what is easy, they deposit strength into themselves. These deposits compound. Skipping excuses, resisting impulse, and staying consistent when motivation fades are not dramatic acts, but they quietly construct an unshakable foundation. Power grows not through intensity, but through repetition. Suffering plays a crucial role in this process. Avoided suffering turns into weakness, while accepted suffering becomes a teacher. When an individual faces hardship directly, without self-pity or blame, they learn their own capacity. They discover that they can endure more than they believed. This discovery cannot be inherited or taught through words. It must be experienced. Each challenge survived strengthens internal authority, replacing fear with confidence grounded in reality rather than illusion. Self-control is another pillar of internal power. The inability to control emotions, reactions, and habits places power in the hands of circumstances and other people. When anger dictates behavior, power is lost. When desire overrides discipline, power is surrendered. Internal power emerges when a person responds rather than reacts, chooses restraint over impulse, and remains grounded under pressure. This control is not suppression, it is awareness combined with choice. Comparison is one of the greatest threats to internal power. Measuring oneself against others shifts focus outward and breeds insecurity or arrogance, both of which weaken growth. Every individual has a unique rhythm, capacity, and path. Comparing progress ignores unseen struggles and creates unnecessary dissatisfaction. Internal power develops when attention is directed inward, toward improvement rather than validation. Growth accelerates when energy is spent refining the self instead of observing others. Consistency strengthens identity. When actions align with values repeatedly, trust in oneself forms. This self-trust is a form of power that cannot be shaken by external opinion. People who rely on inherited power often collapse when challenged because their confidence was never tested. Those who build internal power remain stable under pressure because they have proven themselves to themselves. Their strength is quiet, grounded, and durable. Responsibility is the final and most defining element. Internal power demands full accountability. Blame dissolves it. Excuses weaken it. Each time responsibility is taken, regardless of fairness or circumstance, power increases. This mindset transforms obstacles into opportunities for growth rather than reasons for resentment. Responsibility does not mean control over everything. It means control over response, effort, and integrity. Power that comes from within cannot be taken, borrowed, or lost through external change. It is not granted by others, nor revoked by failure. It grows through awareness, discipline, suffering, self-control, and responsibility. Once cultivated, it shapes decisions, stabilizes emotions, and directs life with clarity and purpose. Discipline is often misunderstood as something rigid or restrictive, but in truth it is the quiet force that initiates momentum. Many people believe motivation must come first, that they must feel inspired, confident, or ready before taking action. This belief keeps them stagnant. Motivation is emotional and inconsistent, rising and falling without warning. Discipline, however, is deliberate. It does not depend on mood or circumstance. It acts first, and through action, motivation is created. Waiting for motivation places control outside the self. It allows emotions, comfort, and environment to dictate behavior. On days when energy is low or fear is high, progress stops. Discipline removes negotiation. It establishes a standard of behavior that remains consistent regardless of internal resistance. By acting in alignment with this standard, even when desire is absent, the individual generates movement. Movement produces results, and results feed motivation. Discipline trains the mind to obey intention rather than impulse. The human mind naturally seeks comfort and avoids discomfort. Without discipline, this tendency dominates decision-making. Short-term relief is chosen over long-term growth. Discipline interrupts this pattern. Each time a person chooses to act despite resistance, they weaken the authority of impulse and strengthen self-command. Over time, this creates a mental environment where effort feels normal rather than exceptional. Action taken without motivation often feels heavy at first. The body resists, the mind complains, and doubt surfaces. But once action begins, resistance decreases. Energy follows movement. The mind adapts to the new demand, focus sharpens, and engagement replaces hesitation. This shift is frequently mistaken for motivation arriving, when in reality, it is the natural response to disciplined action. The brain rewards effort with clarity and drive once it senses commitment. Discipline also builds trust within the self. When a person repeatedly follows through on commitments, even small ones, they prove reliability to themselves. This internal trust reduces mental friction. Doubt lessens because past behavior demonstrates capability. Motivation becomes easier to access because confidence is grounded in experience, not hope. Discipline, therefore, is not just about structure, it is about identity formation. Consistency amplifies this effect. Irregular bursts of effort fueled by temporary motivation create uneven results and emotional dependency. Discipline establishes rhythm. Rhythm stabilizes progress. When actions become habitual, they require less emotional energy to initiate. The process becomes automatic, freeing mental space and reducing internal conflict. Motivation is no longer required to start, it becomes a byproduct of sustained engagement. Discipline also teaches patience. Motivation often demands immediate reward, while discipline is willing to invest without visible return. This willingness separates those who develop real skill and strength from those who remain dependent on excitement. By continuing through periods of boredom and slow progress, discipline allows deeper growth to occur. This depth later produces confidence and enthusiasm that appear effortless but are rooted in prolonged commitment. Fear loses power under discipline. Fear thrives on inaction and uncertainty. When disciplined action continues despite fear, the unknown becomes familiar. Repetition reduces threat perception. Tasks once avoided become manageable, and challenges lose emotional weight. Motivation increases not because fear disappears, but because fear no longer dictates behavior. Discipline reframes fear as a signal, not a barrier. Discipline strengthens resilience. Setbacks are inevitable, and motivation often collapses after failure. Discipline persists, it adapts, adjusts, and continues. This persistence builds endurance, allowing individuals to remain engaged during difficulty. Motivation derived from discipline is more stable because it is reinforced by experience rather than idealism. Progress becomes measurable, reinforcing belief in the process. Ultimately, discipline creates freedom. It frees individuals from reliance on fluctuating emotions and external encouragement. It establishes control over time, effort, and direction. Motivation that arises from discipline is grounded and sustainable, not fleeting or dependent on circumstance. By acting first, consistently and deliberately, discipline ignites the internal spark that motivation alone can never produce. Comparison begins subtly, often disguised as motivation or self-evaluation, but it gradually shifts attention away from personal growth and toward external measurement. When individuals compare themselves to others, they abandon their own trajectory and begin chasing standards that may not align with their nature, timing, or capacity. This redirection of focus weakens progress because energy is spent observing rather than developing. Potential thrives in concentration, not distraction. Every individual operates under different conditions. Background, temperament, opportunity, struggle, and pace vary widely, yet comparison ignores these variables. It compresses complex journeys into surface-level outcomes and creates distorted conclusions. One person's success appears effortless while another's effort feels insufficient, even when the realities are reversed. This distortion breeds dissatisfaction and erodes confidence, making individuals question their worth rather than refine their skills. Comparison fosters impatience. When progress is measured against someone else's timeline, growth feels slow, even when it is steady. This impatience leads to premature decisions, shortcuts, and abandonment of process. Instead of allowing skills to mature naturally, individuals rush toward visible results, sacrificing depth and sustainability. Potential requires time to unfold, and comparison interrupts this process by imposing artificial urgency. Self-awareness diminishes under constant comparison. Attention turns outward, reducing sensitivity to internal signals such as strengths, limitations, and genuine interests. Individuals begin imitating behaviors and goals that are incompatible with their own nature. This imitation may produce short-term improvement, but it ultimately creates internal conflict. True potential is expressed through alignment, not mimicry. Comparison also alters motivation. Effort becomes driven by competition rather than purpose. When the primary goal is to surpass others, satisfaction becomes conditional and temporary. There is always someone ahead, creating a cycle of frustration and insecurity. Motivation fueled by comparison is unstable because it depends on external positions rather than internal progress. When comparison fades, so does the drive. Fear intensifies in a comparative mindset. Fear of falling behind, fear of judgment, and fear of inadequacy take root. These fears discourage experimentation and risk-taking, both of which are essential for growth. Instead of exploring new possibilities, individuals play safe, choosing familiar paths that promise approval rather than challenge. Potential shrinks when fear dictates behavior. Comparison also distorts self-perception. Success can breed arrogance when others appear behind, while failure can lead to self-contempt when others appear ahead. Both outcomes weaken growth. Arrogance halts learning, and self-contempt erodes initiative. Balanced self-assessment is replaced by emotional fluctuation, making progress inconsistent and fragile. The habit of comparison reduces gratitude. Achievements lose meaning when they are immediately measured against someone else's greater success. Progress feels insufficient, regardless of how far one has come. This lack of acknowledgement drains motivation and diminishes resilience. Gratitude strengthens persistence, while comparison undermines it by constantly shifting the benchmark. Comparison encourages external validation. Approval, recognition, and praise become primary indicators of worth. When these are absent, effort declines. Internal standards weaken, and self-respect becomes conditional. Potential depends on intrinsic motivation, which thrives on personal values rather than public opinion. Comparison replaces this internal compass with a fluctuating external gauge. Focus is the foundation of excellence, and comparison fractures it. Attention divided between self-improvement and external monitoring cannot fully engage in either. Deep work, mastery, and creativity require immersion. Comparison interrupts immersion by repeatedly pulling awareness outward. This interruption prevents individuals from entering states of flow where potential is most fully expressed. Letting go of comparison restores clarity. When attention returns inward, progress becomes measurable by effort, consistency, and learning rather than rank or recognition. Strengths are refined, weaknesses addressed, and growth resumes at a natural pace. Potential expands when individuals commit to their own path without interference, allowing development to unfold according to its own design. Suffering is often approached as something to be avoided, silenced, or eliminated, yet it remains one of the most effective forces for transformation. When discomfort appears, the instinct is to resist, distract, or escape. This reaction is natural, but it prevents learning. Suffering does not exist to punish, it exists to reveal. It exposes weaknesses, attachments, and illusions that comfort keeps hidden. Without it, growth remains shallow and untested. Pain draws attention to what is misaligned. Emotional suffering signals unmet needs, unresolved conflict, or false expectations. Physical suffering highlights limits, imbalance, or neglect. Mental suffering reveals patterns of thought that distort perception. Each form carries information. When suffering is rejected outright, this information is ignored, and the same lessons repeat with greater intensity. When it is examined with awareness, it becomes guidance. Avoidance transforms suffering into something heavier. What is resisted tends to persist, often resurfacing in different forms. Discomfort postponed does not disappear, it accumulates. This accumulation increases fear and reduces resilience. Facing suffering directly interrupts this cycle. It builds familiarity with discomfort, reducing its emotional charge. What was once overwhelming becomes manageable through exposure and understanding. Suffering strips away illusion. Comfort allows people to maintain narratives about themselves and the world that are unchallenged. Difficulty challenges these narratives. It reveals dependency, fragility, and misplaced identity. This exposure can feel threatening, but it creates an opportunity to rebuild on a more solid foundation. Strength formed without challenge lacks depth, while strength forged through struggle is grounded and durable. Endurance is developed through suffering. Endurance is not merely the ability to tolerate pain, but the capacity to remain present and functional under pressure. Each time an individual stays engaged during hardship, their threshold expands. Tasks that once seemed unbearable become possible. This expansion changes self-perception, replacing doubt with earned confidence. Such confidence cannot be simulated or transferred, It is the result of lived experience. Suffering also clarifies priorities. In moments of comfort, it is easy to pursue distractions and trivial concerns. Difficulty sharpens focus. It forces decisions about what truly matters and what can be discarded. Many attachments lose their grip under pressure, revealing what is essential. This clarity simplifies life and directs energy more effectively. Growth without suffering often lacks humility. Struggle humbles by revealing limitation. This humility opens the door to learning. When arrogance is reduced, receptivity increases. Feedback is accepted, adjustments are made, and progress accelerates. Suffering creates a mental state where learning is not theoretical but necessary. Meaning emerges through hardship. When challenges are endured with intention, they provide context to achievement. Effort gains significance when it is earned through adversity. Without contrast, success feels empty. Suffering deepens appreciation by highlighting the cost of progress. This appreciation strengthens commitment and resilience. Avoiding suffering leads to fragility. A life structured entirely around comfort leaves individuals unprepared for inevitable disruption. When difficulty arises, response is panic rather than adaptation. Embracing suffering as part of development builds psychological immunity. Stress becomes a stimulus rather than a threat. Adaptability increases and fear loses its dominance. Suffering teaches patience. Results are rarely immediate, and progress often unfolds slowly under strain. Remaining consistent during these periods trains long-term thinking. Impulsivity fades, replaced by steady effort. This patience supports sustainable growth rather than short-lived bursts of enthusiasm. Perspective changes through suffering. Experiences once taken for granted gain value. Empathy deepens as personal struggle enhances understanding of others. This expanded perspective strengthens relationships and decision-making. Suffering humanizes, grounding individuals in reality rather than abstraction. When suffering is reframed as instruction rather than opposition, its role changes. It becomes a signal to adjust, strengthen, or realign. Each challenge carries a lesson proportionate to the attention given to it. By engaging rather than escaping, individuals extract value from difficulty, transforming pain into progress and resistance into resilience. The desire to control external circumstances is deeply rooted in human nature. People seek influence, recognition, and authority, believing that power over the world will bring stability and fulfillment. Yet without self-mastery, external control is unstable and often destructive. A person who cannot regulate their own thoughts, emotions, and actions will struggle to handle responsibility, regardless of how much authority they acquire. Mastery of the self is the foundation upon which all sustainable influence is built. The mind is the first territory requiring discipline. Thoughts shape perception, and perception shapes behavior. When the mind is left unchecked, it becomes reactive, jumping from impulse to impulse. External events then dictate internal states. Self-mastery begins with awareness of thought patterns and the ability to choose responses rather than being driven by habit. This awareness creates space between stimulus and action, allowing intention to replace reflex. Emotional regulation is equally critical. Emotions provide information, but when they govern behavior, clarity is lost. Anger clouds judgment, fear restricts action, and desire distorts priorities. Mastering the self does not mean suppressing emotion. It means understanding and directing it. An individual who can remain composed under pressure maintains access to reason and strategy. This composure is essential for leadership, decision-making, and resilience. Discipline over the body reinforces mental control. Physical habits influence energy, focus, and endurance. Neglecting the body weakens the mind, while training it builds consistency and resilience. Through deliberate physical effort, individuals learn to endure discomfort, delay gratification, and follow structure. These lessons transfer directly to mental and emotional domains, strengthening overall self-command. Impulse control defines the difference between reaction and choice. Without it, behavior is dictated by immediate desire or aversion. With it, actions align with long-term values. Mastering impulses requires repeated practice, often in small, unremarkable moments. Each decision to pause, reflect, and act intentionally strengthens internal authority. Over time, this authority becomes automatic, guiding behavior even under stress. Self-mastery also involves managing attention. In a world saturated with stimuli, the ability to focus is a rare form of power. Distraction fragments effort and weakens output. By training attention, individuals deepen their engagement with tasks, enhancing quality and efficiency. Focused attention enables learning, creativity, and execution, all of which are necessary for influencing the external world effectively. Identity plays a central role in self-mastery. Actions are shaped by self-concept. When identity is vague or externally defined, behavior becomes inconsistent. Clarifying values and principles provides internal guidance. Decisions become easier because they align with a coherent sense of self. This alignment reduces internal conflict and conserves energy, allowing sustained effort over time. Without self-mastery, attempts to master the world often result in conflict. Unchecked ego seeks dominance rather than cooperation. Insecurity drives control rather than leadership. Impatience leads to reckless decisions. These patterns create resistance and instability. Self-mastery transforms these tendencies by fostering humility, patience, and strategic thinking. Adaptability is another outcome of self-mastery. Those who understand themselves can adjust to change without losing direction. External conditions fluctuate, but internal stability allows consistent progress. This adaptability is crucial in complex environments where rigid control fails. Mastery of the self provides the flexibility needed to navigate uncertainty. Responsibility anchors self-mastery. Taking ownership of actions, outcomes, and growth strengthens integrity. Blame weakens internal authority by shifting focus outward. Responsibility reinforces agency, reminding individuals that while they cannot control everything, they can control their response. This mindset cultivates resilience and initiative. Mastering the world requires interaction with people, systems, and challenges. Success in these interactions depends on clarity, restraint, and intention. These qualities originate internally. When the self is undisciplined, external efforts scatter. When the self is mastered, actions become deliberate and effective, allowing influence to expand naturally and sustainably. Responsibility is often perceived as a burden, something heavy that restricts freedom and increases pressure. In reality, responsibility is the source of personal power and growth. When individuals accept responsibility for their actions, choices, and outcomes, they reclaim control over their lives. Without responsibility, effort becomes conditional and progress depends on circumstances or other people. Greatness cannot emerge from this dependency. Avoiding responsibility creates fragility. When challenges arise, those who deflect blame search for excuses rather than solutions. This habit weakens character and limits development. Each excuse reinforces helplessness, convincing the mind that progress is out of reach. Responsibility reverses this pattern by restoring agency. When a person accepts ownership, even in unfair situations, they regain the ability to act. Responsibility sharpens awareness. Taking ownership forces honest self-assessment. Strengths and weaknesses become visible without distortion. This clarity enables improvement. Without responsibility, feedback is ignored or externalized, preventing growth. Those who embrace responsibility use failure as information rather than identity, allowing them to adjust and continue. Effort intensifies under responsibility. When outcomes are owned, commitment deepens. Half-hearted attempts disappear because results reflect directly on the individual. This increased effort accelerates learning and performance. Responsibility demands consistency, not perfection. Showing up repeatedly, even when conditions are imperfect, builds momentum. Discipline is reinforced through responsibility. Commitments are honored not because they are easy, but because they are chosen. This strengthens self-trust. Each fulfilled obligation confirms reliability, both internally and externally. Over time, this trust becomes a stabilizing force, reducing doubt and hesitation. Responsibility also fosters resilience. Setbacks are inevitable, but ownership transforms them into challenges rather than defeats. Instead of waiting for rescue or sympathy, responsible individuals adapt. They ask what can be learned and what can be done next. This forward-focused mindset sustains progress under pressure. Leadership emerges naturally from responsibility. People trust those who own their decisions and accept consequences. Accountability signals integrity and competence. Even mistakes, when owned, strengthen credibility. Responsibility builds influence because it demonstrates reliability in uncertain situations. Responsibility expands capacity. Taking on obligations stretches ability. While avoidance keeps skills stagnant, responsibility forces development. New demands require new skills, perspectives, and endurance. This expansion is uncomfortable, but it is the mechanism through which capability grows. Greatness is not discovered, it is built through increasing responsibility. Blame undermines growth by externalizing control. When others are held responsible for outcomes, power is surrendered. Responsibility reclaims that power. It shifts focus from fairness to effectiveness. While circumstances may be unjust, response remains a choice. This distinction separates those who progress from those who stagnate. Purpose strengthens under responsibility. Goals become meaningful when individuals commit fully to them. Responsibility transforms intention into obligation. This obligation sustains effort when motivation fades. Purpose rooted in responsibility is durable because it is supported by action rather than emotion. Responsibility also cultivates humility. Acknowledging mistakes requires honesty and courage. This humility keeps learning active and ego in check. Growth continues because there is no illusion of completion. Responsibility maintains openness to improvement. Freedom increases through responsibility. Contrary to common belief, freedom is not the absence of obligation, but the ability to direct one's life. Responsibility provides structure, and structure enables progress. Without it, freedom becomes chaos. With it, freedom becomes intentional. Greatness demands reliability, resilience, and continuous growth. Responsibility fuels all three by anchoring effort in ownership and integrity. When individuals stop waiting for permission, rescue, or ideal conditions, and instead accept full responsibility for their path, they unlock the capacity to build something meaningful through deliberate and sustained action.